Hey guys, it's Jordan here from SwitchWatch. How are you all doing today? Today's review is of Mechstermination Force on the Nintendo Switch. A bit of a mouthful, but let's see how it's turned out. Now, it may sound odd getting hyped up about a $12 action game, but Mechstermination Force is a special case. Considering it's headed by the same guy who made the simple but utterly charming Gunman Clive games, I was excited. The year is 2024, gigantic robots known as MegaMechs are ravaging the Earth. They are of unknown origins, but they are on a mission to wipe humanity from the planet. Nation after nation falls to these oversized machines, and the fate of the Earth rests in the hands of a small group of fighters. Although, I should say, one fighter. You. As a one-man army, you need to take down the mechs that come in all shapes and sizes, find their origins, and destroy the source. 14 MegaMechs standing your way. Can you do it? Of course, the story is not particularly important here. This is all about the action, but at least they've tried a little. There's only a beginning cutscene and some small interaction with a few survivors at your base, but that's all that's needed, so let's move on to the gameplay. Whatever you do, don't go into Mechstermination Force expecting an action platformer. Sure, it has action in it, it also has plenty of platforming in it too, but not in the traditional sense. Levels are not your standard platforming levels that you'd find in Super Mario or the developer's previous games Gunman Clive. Mechstermination Force has these elements but is essentially a boss rush game. There are no standard levels with normal enemies or goals to get to. Each level, you have just one unique giant boss to take down. That is your only goal. For me, there are two big iconic games that Mechstermination Force has been influenced by. Maybe not intentionally, but they ooze the feeling. The first one is Contra. Yes, Contra has those standard levels that I said that this lacks, but the controls and the feel of the game really emulates the classic Konami game. You run and gun with the same sort of feeling. It's not quite to that same level of perfection, as physics are just as floaty as they were in Gunman Clive, but it does feel very good to play. You can shoot pretty much 360 aiming if you use the analog stick, although the D-pad limits you to just 8 directions. Considering moving and aiming are the same button, you have the left shoulder button to lock you in place if you want to aim more precisely. As you make your way through the bosses, you'll eventually get a couple of additions to your repertoire. Firstly is the wall grab, which with the right shoulder button allows you to cling onto specific metallic objects. Secondly, you will acquire a double jump. You must master these techniques as the enemies get more and more ambitious as you scale up their bodies to get to their weak points. And that brings me on to the second game. Although it looks completely different, Mechstermination Force is basically just a 2D shadow of the Colossus. When I first heard about this game and saw some journalists citing Fumito Ueda's masterpiece, I thought it was going to be a lazy comparison. But no, it's perfect. The gameplay is the bosses as you climb up their body piece by piece, struggling to get to the weak points. It's the same concept, just from a different perspective. Each boss has multiple weak points that come in two varieties, red and yellow. The yellow ones are the easiest to deal with since you can destroy them using your normal guns, usually from a safe distance. The red ones are far trickier, however, and require getting up close and personal. You have to work your way up the mech, fending off its attacks, clinging to limbs for dear life, and inch towards that red spot, at which point you need to whack it with your melee attack. On the smaller ones, you'll take them down in one, but the bigger kind will need multiple attempts. A heavy task considering hitting it will make you fly off and need to climb back up again. It's truly very thrilling and epic. It will also make you want to cry. Mechstermination Force is a tough game. A very tough game, and not one for casual players, I would think. Maybe the art style would leave you to believe this could be interesting for kids who like robots, but no, your child will cry. The bosses are relentless and unforgiving, even early on. Once you're past the tutorial, no hand is held. Trying to scale these mechanical beasts, all the while dodging their endless attacks which come at random, will often lead to your frustration and disbelief, swearing to yourself that there was no way you could dodge that. And sure, there are times when bad luck and timing will mean that you will take a hit no matter what, but that's all part of the challenge and all part of the glorious feeling of victory once you overcome a foe after a dozen tries. And a dozen tries is not an exaggeration. It will take a couple of deaths before you actually figure out what you're going to do, a couple more to figure out all the enemy attacks and quirks, and then half a dozen more just trying to do what you need to do. Of the 14 bosses, I only beat 2 of them on my first try, and one of those was the tutorial. While there is plenty of skill involved, a huge amount if I'm being honest, there are certain aspects to the programming that don't help matters. Yes, the game does have its flaws. Firstly, I did have issues with the wall grab. I don't think it's reliable enough. I'm sure a lot of it would have been down to my own personal timing, but I think it needed to be a little more generous since it worked successfully about 90% of the time for me in a heated situation. 10% of the time when I was pretty convinced it should have grabbed, it didn't, which often led to frustration and taking hits. It can be brutally unfair at times. Like I said, there are plenty of times when there's just no possible way to dodge some of the attacks if the boss does the right combination and you're in slightly the wrong place. You've got a laser beam coming at you from one side, multiple bullets from the other. There's just no way to avoid getting hit. This I can take, especially since you have health points. What I didn't appreciate is that when you hit the boss in the weak point with your melee attack, you are sent flying off, so you have to climb back up again to hit it more. That's fair enough, but I hated the fact that when you get flung off, you can be put straight into the path of enemy bullets that have been previously let off. It's completely out of your control and completely unfair. There is an unwritten rule of video game design. If you hit an enemy and get sent back to a starting position, enemy attacks should be instantly nullified, disappear. Another small issue I had was with the cake that you can pick up to restore health. There's just no balance to it. They are very rare, which is fair enough, but it seemed to me that you'd always get them right at the beginning of the battle when you don't need it, and then never see one again. It also doesn't help that they often dropped into the most inconvenient places possible, either under enemy feet or straight into a lava pit. I appreciate the fact that they are present and not overly common, but a little bone to help their collection would have been nice. I should mention that there is a very small hub world between battles where your base, captain and shop lay. There's not much to it, but it's a nice break of pace where you can also go back to play previous levels or listen to the music player. The shop is the most interesting aspect though. This is where you can buy extra health pieces, either permanent for a hefty price or a temporary one for something a bit more affordable. I never used a temporary one, so I'm not exactly sure how this can help you cheese the game if you really can't handle the difficulty, but I suspect that it would help somewhat. The weapons are what you really want though. There's a good few that pop up the more you buy, a decent handful in total, and personally I found a nice combo of the spread shot and flamethrower to be complementary to each other. One is great for close-up combat while the other gives you a nice width of attack from a distance. Overall, gameplay-wise, Mechstermination Force is equal parts thumb-busting difficult and orgasmically epic. There are some small flaws out there that do hinder the enjoyment at times, and I think this could be balanced better with a patch, but it's still very fun to play, and if you like tough games with epic, well-thought-out, ever-evolving bosses, then this is the game for you. It may only have one goal in mind, but each boss is very unique, and none of them feel the same at all. If there's one thing I've learned about Bertel Holberg from playing his games, is that he's very good at planning and knows how to pace and evolve the experience over time, and that shows perfectly here. In the audio department, we have an excellent soundtrack. The people behind the dozen or so songs here have done a very good job. It may not be as stylistic as Gunman Clive's awesome little western stuff, but that's due to the generic nature of the soldier war mech themes going on, but they've done a great job ascending what could otherwise be a bland audio experience. I will say that because of the hardcore gameplay and the 100% concentration needed in order to not die, it's not always easy to notice the soundtrack while playing, but I feel that would be the case no matter how awesome the songs were. Thankfully, there's a jukebox hidden in the hub world in which you can listen to them at your leisure and get pumped up even when not playing. Visually, the game has a bold, cel-shaded look. Colours are very stark and in a theme that could easily lend itself to bland browns and greys. At least they're not afraid to have a bit of colour splashed around in this one. I love the fact that every boss is its own distinct colour, which really sets them apart even more than their unique designs. Environments in which you fight them are equally unique and add a nice layer of production to proceedings. I think more could have been going on in the backgrounds, but it's not a major complaint. I think it looks suitably awesome and just as good as what came before from the same developer. Performance-wise, you're looking at a rock-steady 60 frames per second without any drops as far as I could tell. You might think that's a given considering the small nature of the game, but often at times there's an absolute ton of stuff going on with the relentless enemy movements and attacks, especially with the last boss, which is almost comical levels of stuff going on, but the game still holds itself very well. The developers of this game may be forever synonymous with ridiculously underpriced gems, so the price of Mechstermination Force may be a little tough to swallow. It's $11.99 in the US and £10.99 in the UK. That's a lot more than Gunman Clive, but to be honest, the comparisons are unfair. Judging Mech Force on its own terms, I think it's decent value for money. Not crazily priced by any means, but a decent bet for your cash. You're looking at around 3 to 4 hours depending on your skill level, which is a decent length. In terms of replayability, it's only for those with true grit and determination. The 3-star timing ranks need to be played absolutely perfect, and I could never get more than 1 star despite me trying what I thought was my best. For the casual player, there's not much replayability. There are different characters, but they all play the same. There is cooperative play too, which may give you an extra mile or two if you've got a skilled friend hanging around. Before we get into my final thoughts, don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you're new to this channel and join the SwitchWatch community. If you're a veteran around here, then do us a favor and hit that like button and leave a comment below. Are you going to be picking up Mechstermination Force? Can you handle the challenge? I'll put up a poll in the top right hand corner of the screen asking you guys if you're going to buy this or not, so join in with that. Overall, Mechstermination Force is a great game, but not without its flaws. You're looking at a real test of your skills against 14 giant robot enemies in what is a very focused game. If you're looking for a run and gun platformer like Gunman Clive was, you'll be very disappointed. But if you're going in with the knowledge of the boss rush nature to it, with very well planned out foes, you'll be in for a treat, as long as you don't pull your hair out of the tough as nails nature to it. I wish the controls were slightly more reliable, hit detection more spot on, and a slight balancing of making it less unfair in a couple of aspects, but saying that, even though I wanted to throw my controller out of the window, I can't deny the exhilaration this game provided after defeating every mech that stood in my way. I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10. I think my thumb needs a week off to rest. If you've enjoyed this review, then may I suggest you head over to watch my review of Gunman Clive, a very overlooked gem on the Switch, made by the same people as this one. I've been Jordan from SwitchWatch, and I'll see you guys over there. Take care.